Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you. In Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August the 8th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I've been sitting around all day contemplating about taking the night off, thinking that I was an NFL veteran, like they're going to do tonight in all these preseason football games.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of people taking the night off. There's tickets that are so reasonable, you almost need, you can buy a ticket for an NFL preseason game in Arizona for the price of a candy in most places, Big C. There's a lot going on, and it's nice that they do that for the fans. But it would be nice if they did it even more in other sports, making it reasonable for people to get out and go see a game as opposed to going to sit in a movie theater. A lot of things going on in the world of golf. And sometimes you just got to appreciate the guys who are in the leaderboard and not the guys that you want to be the leaders. And we know baseball is still swinging the bat. There's a lot of teams trying to gain some separation as we head through the month of August. I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, I know with some of the things that we talk about all the time in the world of sports, I really got a lot of information from people that I know about the boxing segments that we've done over the last couple of days. And it's about fighting, and it's about what region of the country can you go to and really find the best sports. But just give me your thoughts on, again, why boxing means so much to you, because you have a knowledge that goes, you've been talking about fights back in 1908, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, the greatest thing about boxing, Charlton, is that it had held America's interest and the world's interest forever. This is the reason why a champion was named the world champion.
Yeah.
Because they were recognized around the world, and so many people paid attention to boxing. You didn't have to be an athlete to understand boxing. You just sit back and appreciate the sweet science of the sport.
Yeah.
Because that's what it truly is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about always being the tallest. As we chronicled a couple of boxers that was 5'5" and 5'7".
Yeah.
Fighting in the middleweight class and even the heavyweight class, dominating the division. Even Rocky Marciano was only 5'9" as a heavyweight champion, like Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
So it was about the ability of a man, the heart that they had, and the tactical creativeness that they had with their fists.
Yep.
And having great footwork. So many people can identify with boxers because they were your heroes in a way. You know, there were always villains in the ring, but you could create a hero from a boxer. Muhammad Ali became a world-renowned hero.
Yep.
Being in the ring because he spoke for the meek man.
Yeah.
The men who out there who did not have an option in life, who had no voice. He carried the mantle for so many. And we've seen that in boxing because people would lay their lives out, even before my time.
Yeah.
When we did not have televisions. And I remember this from my great-grandfather.
Yeah, okay.
You know, how they sit around the
radio
and listen to the fight.
Yep.
The whole world would be captivated listening to a radio on the fight. That's how dominating boxing was in its heyday, is that everyone would stop what they were doing and pay attention to this radio.
Yeah.
Because it was an information educational tool. And boxers, you live vicariously through them, through those announcers.
You know, ironically, just being out and traveling around over the summertime, you said something in the last couple of days that gave me flashbacks to my great-grandfather who used to play in the Negro Leagues. And I remember it's almost like the tradition that goes from one generation to the next. And I remember talking to my father and also grandfather about sports growing up. And you're right, they didn't sit down in front of a TV. They talked about being around the radio. It's amazing, like doing Big C Sports is radio, even though we have a TV spot with Comcast. But radio is really theater of the mind. And even talking to attorneys over the years, they want to go by the theater of the mind, what you see. But in radio, you got to go by what you hear. Explain the contrast on why radio has lasted for so long, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, the reason why radio and sports are synonymous with each other, even most people that live in a region, they will watch a game on television. They would turn down the volume on the television and listen to their local radio broadcast.
Yeah.
Because he gives the insight that that particular fan wants to hear it from. And yes, most of them are homers, Charlton, because
Yep.
they work for that home team.
Right.
But they give you a better insight to the game. When I listen to the guys on television today, everybody now on television has become a showman.
Yeah.
It's about him. You look at the guys in the pregame, they're all dressed up, they got the makeup on and everything. A radio guy, I mean, half of them might be sitting around in a bathrobe. You never know.
Yeah.
You know, because you never see them.
Yeah.
So they can sit there and they can be relaxed. They might even chug a beer or two during the game because you don't see their face on television.
Yes.
But they're real about what they're giving. They give you their heartfelt interpretation of what's transpiring on the field. Whether it's basketball, baseball, football, soccer, Charlton, hockey, any major sport, even collegiate sport.
Yeah.
When you ever want to understand how great the game is being played in front of you and all the tacticalness that's going on,
Yeah.
turn off the television set.
Yeah.
Turn off those talking heads on television. Find that old thing called a radio.
Yep.
Turn it on to that broadcast and listen to those broadcasters. And you'll once again have an appreciation for a sport that you're watching.
Let me get your thoughts on something, because I have such an affinity for grandparents and my parents, because as you have your own life and you start raising kids, almost, just traveling around the country over the last couple of weeks, I noticed almost every person has a cell phone in their hand, and they're not even looking where they're walking. I mean, you can go on vacation spots anywhere, and people are not paying attention to anything other than what's in the palm of their hand. And I know we were warned about that. But I want to draw that juxtaposition to the older generation, say grandparents. And if you can just remind me, did you ever recall your grandparents walking around with the radio in their hand, or did they gather around the spot with a libation and then listen to a game? Big C, your thoughts?
No, my great-grandparents and even my grandparents, Charlton, they had a transistor radio. I don't think it was more than 20 channels back in those days.
Yeah.
But mostly everybody listened to AM, and there was a little antenna on it, and you had to turn that antenna to a certain direction to get a clear signal.
Yeah.
And, we would sit out on the back porch or even the front porch at times, and that radio would be playing. And they would always say, boys, keep the noise down.
Right.
Because they're paying attention.
Yeah.
Elderly people were educated through the radio. That was their news source, that was their information source, their sports source.
Yeah.
But what they got from the radio, Charlton, they were very attentive.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't have in today's society. People have a very short attention span because they want instant gratitude.
Yeah.
People watch sports highlight shows because they don't have the time to watch the entire game. They would TiVo a game instead of watching it live and go through it, take out all the commercials and all of those things.
Yeah.
I think the elderly people taught us a lot because they taught us to be patient.
Yeah.
And that's what people lack today in society is patience. Everybody's, driving down the road. They're blowing their horn. They're trying to cut people off.
Yep.
They're impatient about trying to get somewhere. They want instant gratification. They don't sit down and have meals anymore. They go through drive-through windows at fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
They want it now. They don't care about the substance. They just want the fulfillment. And so the patience that I learned at a young age, just take your time. Take your time. Do it right. This was always taught to you as a child.
Yeah.
Take your time. Do it right. And if you think about athletes going through coaching, and coaches are trying to teach you something, they say, take your time, pay attention to your technique and fundamentals.
Yeah.
And you think about how much that means when coaches tell young athletes, technique and fundamentals. That's about taking your time, being patient, let it come to you.
Yeah.
Don't try to force the action. You always hear that, especially with boxers. Don't force the action. Let it come to you.
Yeah.
Then you'll pick your spots. You hear that, as a defensive lineman, playing ball, be patient. Don't overrun the hole.
Yeah.
Wait, let that back get up in there. That's when you close. And so that's what you got from the radio generation.
Yeah.
These people were very patient. They paid attention, and they got things right more often than not.
That's interesting, because when you're in your own environment, you don't really notice what's going on around you. We get stuck in rote mode, things that are just by habit. You can probably walk around in your own house with your eyes closed and not bump into furniture because you've seen it so many times. Now you go into a different environment and you got to keep your eyes open. So what I've noticed, because I've been studying older people, because I want to be one someday, I've been studying older people, and they're so astute as to their surroundings now. And I just want, because doing this podcast, you brought to my mind just going over the boxing over the last couple of days and getting some phone calls from people saying, hey, I really appreciate that, because they've forgotten about it. It's like this new generation, and I'm not far removed from it, they really think that Floyd Mayweather is the best fighter ever because he never lost. But he's only climbed the ladder to 50. There are guys who've climbed the ladder to 190 steps, 180 steps, and had just as impressive track record. So for the older generation that may feel left out, and I really do mean that, a lot of grandparents, they don't hear from grandkids because they don't have they don't text. So unless you text them, they probably don't pick up the phone and call, Grandma, how you doing? Grandpa, how you doing? And so talking to some elder statesmen over the last couple of weeks, I really appreciate the fact that they listened to these fights that you talked about, Big C. And even for me as a generation that's removed from them, I appreciate how much those fights back in the day, some fights that you talked about happened over 100 years ago. And they have still such a memory of those things than we have about fights that happened 10 years ago, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, those fights, when you think about fights in the 40s and 50s, Charlton, that was a mainstay of their lives. When you think about minorities in America, that was a mental release for them to be able to sit up and listen to an African-American fighter dominate somebody from the mainstream, Charlton.
Yeah.
That was their opportunity to get even. And they got even through that fighter, Charlton, even though there was a lot of hardships that came because those African-American fighters won.
Yeah.
But they felt that they gave them equality in American society to show America that as much as you wanted to oppress us, when you gave us an opportunity, we can dominate you.
Yeah.
And that's why when you think about black boxers from the 40s and 50s, Charlton, and even the 60s, is that they were African-American icons.
Yeah.
They were put on a pedestal because of what they did to go out, Charlton, and create equality in the African-American world to allow them to participate on a world stage, to dominate. So people couldn't always think of us as second-class citizens in every walk of life. Because on sports, it showed that we could dominate, and if you gave us an opportunity anywhere else with equal playing surface, we could do that even in the business world.
You know what I've learned also, and I love your, I know why they call you the mystic, Big C, but there's something that I want to just bring up from my own perspective. We live in such a commercialized society now that we think about branding. I know some women, and some men too, but mostly women will do this. They put more stake in a purse that says Michael Kors or Calvin Klein or, whoever they want to go to as, hey, look, I wear that brand. Well, when I listen to some of my elder statesmen, African-American men, who some of them, their parents were sharecroppers, they couldn't care less about Calvin Klein or Michael Kors. And they make fun of the younger generation. And I'm just being real. People can have their own opinion. But I just want to get your thoughts, though. Because there's some people who judge you by wearing, don't be offended by what I say, but they'll say the white man has branded black Americans so well that some of our own women will not consider wearing a purse unless it has the slave master's brand on it. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's too far. He said, no, he said, listen to me for a second. Some of our people are so concerned about what label they wear, like the slaves branded their slave, the slave owners branded their slaves. Now you have people, they will go out and get the fake hair, and they got to get a certain kind of hair because they don't trust the hair that came from the original people from the planet. And they'll also brand themselves by wearing clothing, if it's Michael Kors or Calvin Klein or Victoria's Secret, whatever it is. But that was not where sharecropping came from. And that has nothing to do with the history of pride that African Americans had when they fought through Jim Crow. I'm thinking a lot of them are ashamed that they were beaten over the head and marginalized so that their grandkids could run to the store to buy the branding. Michael Kors, Calvin Klein, East St. July, whatever it is. Do you see that too, or are the older people just being like, get off my lawn? Your thoughts?
Charlton, the number one branding product of African Americans in America is Nike.
Nike, yeah.
That is the number one signature of African Americans. I mean, they feel slighted even as a child if they don't have Nikes. That's one of the things that They want to go out. They got to get their kids a pair of Jordans, a pair of Nikes. They don't feel that they have identity unless they have these Nikes on. That's what has drawn African Americans into an irie now.
Yeah.
Is Nike. That is their new branding. It's just like the MAGA hat.
Yeah.
For the president's followers.
Yeah.
Nike emblem is for African Americans. They have to have it. They're not even the best shoe that you can put on your foot.
No.
Especially if you're looking for comfort. Skechers is a more comfortable shoe than Nike. But it's the emblem that has them captivate. I mean, we've had a lot of African-American kids killed over Jordan shoe releases that have come out because they couldn't afford them, so they would take someone else's life to get them.
Yeah.
That's how insignificant branding is, and also significant branding is in America. I mean, we can talk about high-end products everywhere.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to have them. If you have a certain amount of money, you want to say, okay, I can afford this.
Yeah.
It's like buying a Bentley.
Yeah.
If you got the money to buy a Bentley, a Rolls Royce, a Lamborghini, you want to buy it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's still going to get you to the same place in basically the same amount of time.
Yeah.
But the shoe and the branding that people have told children that they are less of value if they don't have on a Nike pair of shoes.
Yeah.
You put on a pair of Adidas. They work just as good. Under Armour. They work New Balance.
Yeah.
I mean, Kawhi Leonard wore New Balance shoes. But you won't see another kid walking around with New Balance shoes. No, I won't wear New Balance. I got to have on Nikes.
Yeah.
The Nikes not going to get them to the NBA either.
Wow.
So they're willing to pay this exorbitant price just for the brand to say that they have arrived. I mean, we've put our emphasis in the wrong place. I understand Michael Kors. I understand Yves Saint Laurent. I understand all the clothing companies.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to footwear, black people think they lack identity if they don't own Nike shoes.
Now, let me get your thoughts on this, because talking to older people, you learn something. I really appreciate it. And sometimes you think you're talking to the man that says, get off my lawn. Hey, we've overcome. We don't have to think that way anymore. But he made some points to me, because I want to learn from older people too. You can't learn a lot from younger people. It's about how big is the rock in your hand, how big is the ice in your pocket. They don't even own the minds where that stuff comes from. And as some of the older gentlemen who have their homes paid off, who have property, they can travel when they want to, they couldn't care less about wearing a $400 pair of shoes. But I want to get your thoughts on this. Have we succumbed to this blindness? I mean, we're watching NFL football tonight. We'll talk about that too. But I remember when I was in college, and there's some fraternities out there, different colors, different ethnic groups. But I was thought about joining one at one time. These men brought out a branding iron and wanted me to brand my arm like I was a cattle, like I was chattel property. And I said, no, I don't want to be a part of that. And they said, if you want to be a part of us, you got to brand yourself. But when the slaves were branded, they didn't have a choice. It was done by property. And I just want to get your thoughts as to when we missed that connection. When did we go from wanting to be free to doing what the mainstream slave owners did to us as people? Why do the frats do that? I want to get your thoughts if that makes any sense.
Well, I understand this fraternity, this brotherhood, and the branding. I was never part of a fraternity. But Nike is a branding symbol also, Charlton. It is a brand. And people are proud to have that brand on their body, whether it's shoes, whether it's the shirt, whether it's the pants, whether it's the hat.
Yeah.
Nike has branded people all around the world, and mainly minorities in America. It is the number one branding product of minorities in America.
Yeah.
It's Nike. And they don't understand that. To have that emblem on your body, you're branded and you're pigeonholed to be one sector of society.
Yeah.
Because they're saying that you don't have the strength to escape that hold of this brand.
Yeah.
And that's what we see all the time. I mean, everybody's embracing it. I don't own one pair of Nike shoes. And, I think about when I grew up, Charlton, the sneakers that we had.
Converse?
Chuck Taylors, the Converse, canvas. You had black, white, you had high top, low top.
Yeah.
And there were also kids' tennis shoes. That was the name of them, PF Kids.
Yeah.
They were black and they were white. You had low tops. That was it.
Yeah.
We had two options when it comes to sneakers. And even in college, Charlton, when I got to college and even in high school, we wore Rydell football shoes.
I remember
they had
those.
a leather sole on.
Yeah.
Rydell. And I know all the old guys know what I'm talking about. They had this little strap across the top of the shoe that laced in and out. But that's what we wore, Rydell. We didn't have all these shoe options.
Yep.
That's what we wore. And you think about it, Charlton, guys played fine wearing those leather shoes. They were heavy shoes. They weren't light like they have now. They weren't these plastic things that they had. They had a leather sole. The tip of the cleats were metal. All of these things.
Yeah.
And athletes were fine. Everybody wore the same thing. Everybody dressed alike on the team. It was uniformity. And I think with that uniformity that we had back in those eras of the 60s and 70s, Charlton, is that it made us stronger people.
Yeah.
Because we were the same. We dressed the same, we act the same, we didn't all look the same.
Right.
Some of us was more sexy than others. But,
sexy chocolate, yep.
We had that same mindset. All for one and one for all.
Yeah.
We didn't have guys with 9 towels hanging off their wrists. We
Right.
didn't have 8 wristbands on another guy. And, eye black and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
We went out and played football fundamentally.
Yep.
The game was about the game. It wasn't about the individual back in that era.
Well, I want to get your thoughts, because I'm just listening to men talk, and I think a lot of what I really respect about the older statesmen, black men like Elijah Cummings and people of that ilk, they walk the talk. They didn't just talk about, hey, I read something about civil rights and now I've made it. And when they talk with passion. And so I'm a guy that's tattoo free. Not that it matters. I admire tattoos. In fact, just over the last couple of weeks, you notice the body art people have. I think it's beautiful on the right person. But everybody has their own opinion. But when I get your thoughts on this, because I'm talking to older men and they don't have radio shows and podcasts, so I'm kind of speaking about some things that were said to me. And he asked me the question. He said, Charlton. And I said, yes. And he said, but do you have tattoos like the young people? And I said, no, not that I think there's anything wrong with it. But he talked about the mindset of young people. And it's not just black Americans, but even for white Americans. And I want to get your thoughts. And again, it doesn't matter to me, but some people, and I see it in the world of MMA, they have so much body art, I would say at least a third of their body is covered with ink as opposed to natural skin. To me, it's not offensive, especially if a person looks, decent and built, etc., good shape. But why would that be offensive to older people, if that makes any sense? Is it a religious thing? Is it just a generational thing? Or is it really disrespectful to their parents, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it all depends on one's mindset as far as tattoos go. You got to understand, tattoos are a cultural thing. They've been around forever. They're in Africa, in Egypt.
Yeah.
People there were tattooed.
Yeah.
When you look at the islands, the Pacific Islanders and Southern Islanders, Charlton, all of those cultures have always worn tattoos. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of status, depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Here in the Western Hemisphere, they made it more of an art form. I mean, even in the Asian market, Charlton, it's about belonging to certain groups.
Yeah. The branding.
Tattoos have always been a signature in life.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nothing new. There's areas of life that have never had tattoos. But when you go to most countries, Charlton, tattoos have been relevant for a reason in these countries. And so when you look at a lot of people get tattoos not understanding the reason for them.
Yeah.
What tattoos started out as.
Yeah.
Now, people look at it as just body art and ways to make money and to make themselves look different.
Yeah.
So it's to each his own. Me, I have a needle phobia. I don't even want to get a shot when I'm at the doctor. They got to hold me down half the time to do it.
Yeah, rub me down.
It happens. So I couldn't get a tattoo because I can hardly take a needle without hyperventilating.
Well, I want to just pay homage to some elderly statesmen that I've met over the past couple of weeks just traveling. Really appreciate the humility. Like young people now, if we got, it's pejoratively speaking, and as he said, if a lot of young men got $5, they want to wear it on their sleeve. They want you to know they got $5. If someone has 100,000, they want you to know they got 100,000. Some of these older men, they own land, they own property. They're not trying to let you know that they can wear a $500 tennis shoe, or they will only buy a purse that's Michael Kors or whoever it is. But they already have the money. And I want to just get one more thought before I ask you one more thing about college. At what point in time did you notice that this branding of merchandising came into play? Most women now, black and white and different colors, they don't even have their own hair. They wear a wig now. That's because they want to. Nothing's wrong with it. People can dye their hair. I heard some older Caucasian women talking in the past couple of weeks about how they want to go back and dye their hair so they can be whatever hair color they want. They don't like their natural hair color. But when people of color do that, they say, oh, you're not trying to be a part of your identity or your own ethnic group. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I've watched this even since I was a young man when I played ball. You saw all these changes in people, and you saw societal whims and changes as they were going. People it's hard to find people that accept being in their own skin.
Yeah.
And regardless of the nationality of that, Charlton, people have always fought to be something different. I always watch Caucasians growing up.
Yeah.
Always not being happy with their skin complexion, always striving to be darker.
Suntanning
always
for cancer.
dyeing their hair, changing the colors of it.
Yeah.
This is something that's always been done. I've watched minority people as I've gotten older, not being happy with their hair texture and color.
Yeah.
Wanting to change it. It's what they talked about their entire lives growing up. All of a sudden, it's something that they want to be now. What they despise to a degree is what they aspire to be now.
Yeah.
One of the things I look at, Charlton, one of the things that most young boys will never see anymore, Charlton, things that they will never see. They will never see a phone booth. Those things are out of existence, okay?
Yeah.
They will never hear a normal phone ring that I heard when I was growing up. It was a stationary ring that every house had when that phone rang, Charlton. It's going to be hard to find a woman without fake eyelashes.
Yeah.
You look around yourself in society as you walk up and down the street and watch television. Tell me when was the last time you saw a woman with real eyelashes and not fake eyelashes on her face?
Well, I got to admit,
How many women have real hair, regardless of the nationality, Anglo, African-American, Asian?
Yeah.
How many women have real hair? They have extensions tucked up under it. They have extensions tucked in the hair. Started with Farrah Fawcett on television. Many people thought that was her real hair.
Right.
She had extensions. She had blonde extensions on her head.
Yeah.
And this has happened throughout time, Charlton, that women have worn wigs, they've worn hair extensions. They are not happy with their own appearance. They're not happy with what God gave them. They're trying to appease other people all the time.
That's incredible. So, in homage to my elderly statesmen and African-American men, I do want to just say one more thing. I was out and just sightseeing and watching. There was this young Caucasian woman, and she looked like she was made in a factory. Everything was like bleached out, but she looked like she was light-skinned African-American because she had such a suntan, but she had her hair bleached out as much as possible. And she had the fake eyelashes, and she had, I'm not knocking the woman, but the guy that she was with was like not in her league. But I noticed whenever they bought something, he was buying it and she was grinning. It's just, everybody does what they got to do to be happy. But I want to pay homage to my African-American elderly statesman. There's a book that he told me about that I read a long time ago. It's called Black Like Me by John Howard Griffin. And it was based on a true story of a white reporter who, at the heights of the civil rights movement, he temporarily darkened his skin to experience the realities of being black in the United States of America and life in the segregated South. People can Google it. It's called Black Like Me, and it's a true account of John Griffin's experiences of passing as a black man. And I just wanted to just tie that in because he was asking me about how they overcame hatred, they overcame segregation, racism, discrimination, and it seems like they did it so that their great-grandkids can try to blend in with the mainstream as opposed to standing up for who they really are. So maybe I got to get deeper into it, but it really made me think, like, am I really, I shave my head. Some people say that's black. Well, some people say it's not. But the point is, I just wanted to pay homage to these older gentlemen who sometimes think that they fought and gave everything they had so we could integrate. And oftentimes when people integrate, they try to assimilate so much that you don't even know who they are anymore. And I don't look at it that deeply, but do you? Does that make any sense, Big C?
Well, a lot of identity was lost in America, Charlton, once desegregation was struck down because the empowerment that you had within your communities were weeded out, Charlton. It became diluted because now all of those resources that you kept within your community, you took elsewhere because you felt that the product was better elsewhere, regardless whether it was a home, whether it was food, whether it was clothing, even though it came from the same manufacturers or the same sources. And so you weaken yourself as a community because the desegregation allowed that to happen. And it was systematic. It was just like integrating baseball, Charlton. You didn't integrate baseball because you loved black people. You integrated baseball because you saw the dollars that they were generating for themselves. And you say, okay, we can take those dollars away from them because we have better facilities. Same thing with desegregation. It wasn't that you loved and appreciated the minorities. It was that, okay, we can take what they've built as a society and take it and make it part of ours. We can take the strength of what they have. We want the strong. That's called culling, and it happens everywhere around the world, even in picking produce, you're culling. You take the best of it and you throw the others away. That's what society has done, Charlton, over the last 60, 70 years in America.
Well, before we come up on the Big C pause, I don't want to just be, hey, what's the score? Who won the game? That's not for smart people. Smart people want to know. They want to be enlightened. And so I appreciate having people have the ability to speak to me about what they see and things that I can do better. I just shed some light on because we do have access to a microphone. So Black Like Me, how does that relate to things today? What's going on with this color society that we have where African Americans and people of color, Latinos, our Mexican brethren, we have this white supremacist garbage coming out of the POTUS and the White House and this neo-Nazi garbage, and then they want to deny it and say, oh, the guy just has a mentally ill? No, people raise their families to be that way. We can't keep acting like they don't. Read the book Black Like Me or Google it for anybody understanding what's happening now to our Mexican American brothers and sisters. It's been happening to Black Americans for a long time. I mean, I just want people to know about it so we can fix it. I do want to say we're going to come up with what's called the Big C pause. I want to come back and ask Big C one more question about colleges and this hazing that happens. If people want to join a frat or sorority, we know colleges are starting later this month all over the country. And there's sometimes people are afraid to say, not me. I don't want to do that. They need to hear some elderly people or some statesmen to say, you don't have to be like everybody else to blend in. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause. We'll come right back, and we hope that you'll come back and join us after this break. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C pause, and I really love what we're doing with Big C Sports. In fact, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on YouTube. If you have a television in your home, and most people do, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast. But what I really love is the app by Alexa. If you say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, you hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll introduce Big C, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate our sponsors for their support. I also want to give out this National Suicide Hotline number for people going through issues. And my goodness, when I talk to older people, they go through issues too. They just don't tell you. There's a number you can call, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. A lot of teenagers, they want to text, they don't want to call. If you're being bullied, going through any issue, don't deal with it alone. Just text 838-255. That's 838-255, and you can hopefully get some help. Last thing I want to say about this branding. Talking to so many people over the last couple of weeks, a lot of schools are starting up again, Big C. Daughters and sons are going off to college. They're away from home for the first time. And maybe even in a high school level too. I just want to get your opinion. We can't speak for everybody. When someone is saying, if you want to join our fraternity, you're going to have tremendous benefits. That's what they're going to tell you. That's how they sell it to you. If you want to join our sorority, you're going to have tremendous benefits. That's how they sell it to you. But you got to get this lightning rod or this hot iron stuck on your back or your leg or your neck or whatever. That's foolish to me. Always has been. But some people say that I'm out. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's an individual and it's also a cultural thing, Charlton. Regardless of the nationality, it's something that's always been there. Fraternities have entitlement. I mean, they have an extension well beyond the college as far as being able to help you later on in your career life. It's a path that anybody chooses. It's no different than anybody wanting to be on any sports team.
Yeah.
You go through what you have to do to make those sports teams. Fraternities are the same way. The things about fraternities that's different from sports teams is something that lasts for life.
Yeah.
All fraternities don't deal with branding. They all have different mantras that you have to do to get into the fraternity.
Yeah.
But, it's one's own path. As a parent, you've got to help your child make the right choices in life, not just while they're at home, but once they leave home.
Yeah.
It's up to you as a parent to prepare them for those ventures outside of your house once they leave.
Yeah.
You can't control them. You like to think that you are in control of that child, but that child has become an adult. Basically, once they become 18, they're emancipated.
Yeah.
So they have the right to choose the path that they want. You just hope that you raise them properly enough to choose the path that you appreciate the most.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. So everybody, if you want to do something, it's okay to get some advice from elderly people or older people. Sometimes just people who care about you, that are not your normal circle. Remember, if you're around your own environment, you can't really learn anything. You got to expand your horizon. That's how you learn. That's just my opinion, listening to some older people. And one more thing I want to say, too, some attorney friends, because we're a nation of the law. And if you're going off for the first time to college and you're on your own, even high school, you do not have rights if you're under 18. You don't, and your parents can't help you. So if you want to get out and start doing wrong and commit a crime, as a juvenile, you don't have any rights. The state will take over. You only have rights as you become 18, from what I understand. So please, just get some advice from the older people. When someone's saying, in order to be a part of our fraternity, you got to do this thing, it may be something that's illegal. You just got to know it. And one more thing, I got a friend that was driving, called me today. His friend, people, please know this. I'm talking to young kids. And old folks, they do what they want to do. But he got arrested for driving with an open container. Now, he told law enforcement, I was not drinking it was just open. And you young people got to know this. If you got an open container in your car, it's called drunk driving. You can be arrested. Don't think you can't. Big C, that make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's always been the law, and you hope that, people have educated themselves enough when they walk out of a house, do not have an open container in a car. It tells you it's illegal to drink and drive. I mean, that's a law. We get those commercials on television all the time. That's the reason why we have MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because so many young people and older people have lost their lives because somebody's been behind the wheel inebriated, and all of a sudden they lose control of a vehicle, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, I have no empathy for anybody who's riding around with an open container in their car.
Yep.
If I'm going to go out and have some libations, I'm almost intelligent enough to call somebody and say, hey, you're going to drive me home, whether it's a cab or a limousine.
Uber, Lyft.
You're going to get me home. I'm not going to get behind the wheel because I can go back to that parking lot the next day and pick my car up.
Yeah, that's true. And even if you have a twist off, if you drink half of it, put the twist back on, it's still an open container. It can't be a broken seal in your car. I did not know that until talking to some law enforcement friends not too long ago. Big C, in Major League Baseball last night, the Atlanta Braves scored 11 runs. The Houston Astros, they scored 11 runs. The Chicago Cubs, they scored 10 runs. Think about the New York Yankees. They scored 14 runs. Will those runs and those scores be higher than some of the NFL games tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you think about that, and I mean, we've had some paltry NFL preseason games when it comes to point production.
Yeah.
And the scores that these baseball teams are putting up, Charlton, are just astonishing. You think about, you named off 5 teams that had double digits last night on the scoreboard, Charlton.
Yep.
That's amazing from a fan perspective, is that you're not sitting there twiddling your thumbs. You got to pay attention because those balls are flying out of the yard, night after night.
Yeah, and that's true. So I think the balls are a little bit juiced, but I also think it's better for baseball when you can have a double-digit score by one team, not adding up both teams, Big C. I know they say people love the long ball, and there are some old-timers, they want the pitching like Satchel Paige. They want people who can come out, Ron Marichal. They want those guys that can strike you out. I've always thought that baseball was better when the scores are higher. I thought that football was better when the scores are higher, and the same thing for basketball. That's why the NBA, if you don't score 100 points, you're probably not going to win an NBA game. Back in the day, you could win when you scored 80. Is that work for you, Big C, or not? Will you want to see low scoring or higher scoring in those sports? Your thoughts?
Well, sports is about entertainment, and I mean, all professional sports have really embraced it. Even the college game has embraced that. It's about scoring. I mean, I've played in games that have been slugfest when you basically score one touchdown or you score a couple of field goals.
Right.
I've been there.
Right.
I mean, it's just is exhilarating either way. But I think from a fan's perspective, and even as a player, you like to be in a game where it's back and forth.
Yep.
Where it's a tussle back and forth.
Yep.
To see who's going to come out on top. I mean, as a defensive player, you hate to give up points, but you appreciate it when your offense is scoring.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why it's called a team sport, because both sides have to do their due diligence. There's times when you can go out as a defensive team, and you can stop the opponent, and your offense is getting the productivity. But it also works in vice versa. When you're stopping an opponent and your offense is not being productive, and you have to be in one of those nail-biter, real close, low-scoring games.
Yeah.
But fans love it either way. Fans want to see you win But when there's more points on the scoreboard, Charlton, I mean, everybody's excited except for the defensive coordinator.
Except for the D coordinators. So in baseball, it's a great game. I really see how it's starting to pick up this time of year. And again, talking to some of the old timers, and I'm just assuming that the gentlemen that are over 70 years old, they still consider baseball their I guess boy time game. I know to me it's football. It's just more. It's a faster pace. I played football, basketball, and baseball in the high school level and college level. But when it comes to the older generation, I still think they love the game of baseball, especially as they get older and they don't want to see people move so fast. They may not have an easy time watching fast break NBA basketball, Big C. Would that make any sense? The older you are, the more you like slower games. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the maturation of the NFL, the NBA, Charlton, in the 40s and 50s, they really weren't mainstay sports in America. Even in the 60s, NFL was not big time.
Right.
The NBA was nobody's sport, Charlton. I mean, you saw it after the late news if they put on a game during championship time. We didn't get that on television.
Yeah.
So when you look at even the NFL, I remember when the NFL celebrated its 50th anniversary, Charlton. I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, here's the NFL. It's 50 years old. And this was back in 70.
Yeah.
And so when you think about how this game has advanced and moved forward, Charlton, it's grown. But baseball, you're talking about a sport that's 150 years old.
Yeah.
Played here in America.
Yep.
Everybody grew up with it before these other sports even got a leg on them.
Yeah. And funny when you say that, talking to some of the older gentlemen, and I really appreciate it because I learned something. A lot of them, when they played baseball, it's called pickup ball. They just needed a bat and a ball, and they would use somebody's shoes as the bases. I remember one of the first times I was playing pickup games, we just took some guys who didn't play and put their shoes out there. That was first, second, third, and home plate, Big C. But that's how they played the game. They didn't need a pair of Nike shoes. They didn't need Armour, Under Armour or Adidas, whatever it was. They just wore what they wore. And they didn't have to have the best bat or best baseball, but they played the game for the love of it. And I see why I think a lot of our generation, especially myself included, we can learn a lot. Pick up the phone, call your grandparents, and just see how they're doing. Ask them some advice on how to get through life. There's too many young people that don't do that because a lot of grandparents don't text anymore. I want to run down tonight's baseball schedule and just get your thoughts on it. I really do like the way the Yankees are playing, Big C. The Yankees are at Toronto tonight, so they're up in Canada, and I know Canada probably will be doing okay for the next couple of years based on what the Raptors did if they don't win a championship. But the Yankees, they didn't make a big splash. Remember that when Houston made the big splash with the pitchers? But the Yankees are saying, wait a minute, don't forget about us, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Yankees are a team that was just hit by the injury bug all year long, Charlton. They put makeshift lineup after makeshift lineup out on the field. The thing about it has been Yankee pride. They have delivered.
Yep.
Other teams are always scrambling. The Yankees have always had a tremendous farm system. They know how to make acquisitions early in the year, and that's what they do time and time again.
Yep.
They picked up Encarnacion earlier, from Seattle prior to the trade deadline. It wasn't a big splash, but he added another big bat to the lineup, which the Yankees have just dominated Major League Baseball between them and the Twins and hitting home runs at a record pace this year.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're playing tonight up in Toronto, and you have German versus Pannone. Should be a good game. The Yankees will probably win. Los Angeles Angels at the Boston Red Sox, and you have Peters going against Chris Sale on the mound. Now, Mike Trout gets to take that big red bat to the East Coast, where the major media markets really care about baseball more. I would just say more than the West Coast. That's just my belief. May be wrong outside of the Dodgers and the Giants. But the Angels going into Boston, Mike Trout has a chance in front of that biased East Coast media to show, is he really worth $430 million, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, hands down, Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. He's been the best player in baseball the last 5 years. His numbers speak for themselves. You look at him, he's in the top 5 in the American League in batting. He's number 1 in the American League in home runs. He's number 1 in the American League in RBIs. He's number 1 in the American League in slugging percentage.
Yeah.
I think everybody in baseball who knows baseball understands Mike Trout's worth.
Yeah.
He just happens to be in the second smallest market in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bothers Mike Trout. and he hasn't had a team that's been competitive.
Yeah.
But most great players don't always play on teams that are competitive. You look at Barry Bonds. How many times did he make it to the World Series while he was with the
Giants.
San Francisco Giants?
Yeah.
Great players, a lot of times, other players enjoy watching them that are their teammates.
Yeah.
And they don't perform up to your standard.
That's
but when
true.
I look at Mike Trout, there's nobody in baseball better than Mike Trout. I mean, and his contract warrants it. When you look at him statistically, and everybody in baseball will tell you, inside and outside the game, Mike Trout is worth every dime when you talk about the money that other players are making.
Especially if the check doesn't bounce. Kansas City Royals at the Detroit Tigers. You have Lopez versus Boyd on the mound. Atlanta at Miami. Atlanta's one of those teams that we talked about that scored double figures last night. And the Miami, for something, and again, you brought this point up. Why in the Sunshine State do you have Miami and Tampa with a dome stadium? Doesn't make any sense. You have Hernandez versus Kuchar going on the mound tonight. Big C, your thoughts on Atlanta?
Well, I mean, that's some southern states, Charlton, that rain just as much as Miami does. I mean, Atlanta is close to it. They get a lot of rain. You get a lot of rain on the eastern seaboard with New York and Boston and Baltimore, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you would think of the beautiful weather that you have most of the time down in Florida, that the players could be able to play outside. I know when the Marlins first came into the National League, they won a couple of World Series, and they were playing down in Fort Lauderdale, Charlton. And
Yeah.
They were playing at Joe Robbie Stadium. It was configured to put in a baseball team also. And it seemed like that organization played better when they were outside. Tampa Bay has always been an indoor team. It was a stadium that was stuck down there. Even the Oakland A's at one point contemplated going down to Florida, moving that franchise down there, and it was a good thing that they never did.
Right.
And they got the Rays in there, and I know they're talking about building a new stadium out there in that Oakland area, Charlton. But baseball is, it was a game that everybody grew up playing outside. I know they have some marvelous indoor facilities in Seattle, in Toronto, in Houston, because of the inclement weather in those places also. But it's still great to be able to open the roof up, Charlton. If it had a dome that could open, I think it would be a lot more inviting to the fans.
Yeah, and I remember the last time I was in Chicago, it was minus 17 degrees. That's what I recall last time I was in Chicago. It was a cold winter, and there's no dome outside of the Bulls. Everybody plays outside. You have Chicago at Cincinnati. The two, it's called the Big C game. Big C, Chicago at Cincinnati. So that's the Big C game of the night. Cole Hamels versus Alex Wood. And no matter who wins, I'm sure the C will prevail. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Chicago Cubs are playing solid baseball right now. Joe Madden has his team playing well. Cincinnati's been up and down, a lot of struggles this year. They have not had consistency in their lineup. This could be a good game, though, Charlton, because they're in the same division.
It should be. Cleveland is at Minnesota tonight. Clevengers versus Gibbons. And I would like to see Cleveland win just because of the Big C on their helmet. Philadelphia's at San Francisco, and that's a 6:45 start, so that game is about to start soon. You have Nola versus Bumgarner. Now, Madison Bumgarner, when there was so much talk about dealing him away from the Giants, they were on a roll. In fact, I think they had played at one time the best baseball in the month of July. But after that trade deadline, the Giants started to level out a little bit. If you've ever flown in the SFO, they have a lot of that wind shear that kind of bounces the plane around a little bit. And that's how they've been playing. A little bit shaky coming down the stretch. Big C, your thoughts on the Giants?
Well, I think this is a team that was full of enthusiasm, trying to keep it together prior to the trade deadline, Charlton. And they seem to have relaxed a little bit after the trade deadline, and they haven't had that same giddy-up in their hits, Charlton, and they've dropped a few here lately. Yeah,
but love to see that, because I'm a Northern California man. I'd love to see. There's nothing like watching. I want to call it AT&T Pac Bell Park, but now it's Oracle Park. Love being there. And when you think about October, I mean, it's an amazing environment off the Embarcadero downtown by the Bay Bridge. All the major cities are putting their arenas downtown, it seems. Chase Center's opening up just about a half mile away from Chase Park, or AT&T Park now, where the Giants play. So it's going to be even more beautiful downtown San Francisco. Colorado at San Diego, last game tonight. You have Gray versus Lauer, and both of those teams are still trying to keep pace with everybody else in baseball. I want to close out on two more sports. I want to hit a little bit of the golf universe, Big C. And when you think about how much golf means to a lot of people, and we still want to see Tiger doing great, but it's just not going to happen right now. It doesn't seem anyway. But I still look at the Liberty National Golf Club in Jersey City, a $9.2 million purse. And you look at some of the leaders, you have Merritt, you have Johnson at the top of the 2 leaderboard. But ironically, when you think about some of the big golfers, the names you want to see, that's Tiger Woods, and that's also Koepka. McIlroy's playing okay, but Woods is tied at 116. He struggled to hit 75, shot 75 on the day. And then you think of McIlroy, he's tied for 5th, shot 65. Koepka, the guy that everybody likes lately, he's tied at 65, shot a 70. Tiger Woods, 15 times major champion, seems frustrated. Maybe he's not really healthy after all. I really don't have any idea, but he still moves the needle. How do you still move the needle when you're at tied for 116, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the name is what moves the needle. Everybody wants to see Tiger win. I don't think if a lot of people expect Tiger to win because he's not playing with house money any longer, Charlton. Tiger has admitted a couple months ago that he wasn't competitive, that golf wasn't his mainstay mentally.
Yep.
And so I take the mental over the hurt part, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that golf. And I play it too often, and I've still never gotten good at it. But it's about the mental mechanics of the game. It's not about the physicality because my body's in a lot worse shape than Tiger's.
Yeah.
But it's about what you do mentally in the game. It's about hitting it enough, Charlton. He doesn't go out and play enough.
Yeah.
You can go practice all the time. Practice is practice.
Yep.
But competitive competition is totally different because your mindset changes. It's like all these preseason football games that are being played tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, at least 8-10 football games are being played tonight.
Yeah.
This is about mental preparation. All these guys have worked in training camp all summer long. They're tired of beating up on each other.
Yeah.
Now they're getting ready to go out and play another opponent, somebody who doesn't have the same color jersey on.
Yeah.
The difference is, Charlton, is that these guys are not the best at what they do.
Yeah.
These are guys that are scrambling, fighting, and they're out there trying not to make mistakes. Yes, you want them to make big plays, but they're so concerned with not making mistakes, Charlton. It's not about making the best play.
Yeah.
That's what Tiger is. Tiger goes out on the course. Tiger's not trying to win. He's trying not to make mistakes.
His belly's full.
And I think that's why he makes so many mistakes now, and he stays out of the fairway, Charlton, on his drives.
Yeah.
He can't get the ball up on the green. He can't putt worth a damn. But he's trying not to make mistakes, and that's the reason why he's not a great competitive golfer at this point in his career.
McIlroy actually in a good spot, but you really can't think about it until you get into the weekend. That's what it matters. Koepka tied. He's in a good spot. Shot 65 at tied with 65. Shot a 70 today. And again, it's just about how people move the needle. And talking to some of my elderly, statesmen, African American men who could tell me about things that happen in life where we take so much for granted. They couldn't care less about Michael Kors purse or Yves Saint Laurent or whatever, a Rolex watch. They just didn't care. They cared about having the right to vote, having the chance to get a loan for a home, and send their kids to a decent school and live in a decent neighborhood. How things have changed in the last 100 years, and it really made me think about, my own desires in life. I want to have everything. I want to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. I love being able to do what we want to do. Not everybody can. There's something that I was taught, Big C, because I really appreciate when I hear you go back in history. And there are times, even in proceedings, you think, does this person have an encyclopedia in their mind? Are they listening to something on tape? Because knowledge is something that you got to earn. No one gives it to you. It's the one thing in life that we all can't go in the store and buy. You can't buy knowledge. You got to put in the time to read it and study it. And when you have that, not just in sports, but in politics and in history, I really appreciate hearing that. I want to just close out tonight's thoughts on two more things. We have, you talked about football, and everybody loves football. I mean, how could you not? It's something that a lot of people have just grown up with. It's been heavily marketed. Tonight, some preseason games with some ironic twist at the end of it. Indianapolis at Buffalo. Washington's at Cleveland. You have New England at Detroit. Atlanta is playing at Miami. They don't really dome their stadium down there. They covered it up quite a bit at the top. Tennessee at Philadelphia. You have Jacksonville at Baltimore. Carolina is playing at Chicago. Houston's at Green Bay. Los Angeles Chargers, I got to remember this, Chargers of Los Angeles, not San Diego, at Arizona. And Denver's at Seattle. Think about this. There's a game, New York Giants and the Jets were suspended. But you can get a ticket in Arizona. It's $2. I thought it was a typo. But they had tickets going for as low as $2. Big C, your thoughts down in Arizona?
Well, I mean, you want to get get people in out of the heat down in
Yeah.
Arizona. So you're basically inviting them inside this air-conditioned stadium
Yeah.
down there at the University of Phoenix Stadium. But, it's also the preview of the number one overall pick in the draft, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
This is a game tonight that Kyler Murray needs to play at least the first half, Charlton, because people are sitting there veterans, but Kyler's not a veteran. He needs to get all the game work that he can
Yeah.
against NFL caliber talent, Charlton. The speed of the game is a lot different, and the size of the game is a lot different than what he dealt with at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So you can't take this young man into the start of the regular season, and he doesn't have at least 3 full games under his belt, playtime-wise, during the preseason, Charlton.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I love talking about sports, and I love politics, and I love the history. I love so much of it. I want to get your thoughts on 2 more things before we close out. It's really funny to me, and I think you'll find it funny, or maybe you won't, but life's all fair in love and war. When you think about regions of the country that have great sports, we have such an opportunity in America to just be able to go almost anywhere in a major market and watch a source of entertainment and really appreciate it. But I want to ask you, because people are going back to school. I've been talking to so many elder statesmen over the last month, baby, maybe 30, 40 days, just traveling around, really appreciating the land of the free and the home of the brave. And you learn something when you talk to wise people. So I want to ask you a question, Big C. If you've ever been in a conflict with somebody, so much of a conflict that you decide to take the law, use the law. You want to sue people. Judge Wapner said if you get even with somebody, you sue them. Well, have you ever dealt with somebody who is so egotistical that they want to take you to court, and when they lose, now they want to call and be best friends? What advice would you give to young people? Because they may face that sometime in life, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, the biggest thing is to avoid court at all costs. But, people, that's how society is now. I mean, we live in a sue-happy society. I mean, people go in stores and create accidents on their own, and then they want to sue somebody. Everybody wants to hold somebody else accountable for their ineptitude. But, even in losing, battles people lose. It's like, well, let bygones be bygones. That's always been an old-time saying.
Yep.
But to call somebody and try to interact, say, I don't know where I was at that time. I must have lost my head or whatever. If you lose a battle in court, you lose a battle in court. That's the way of life. And the court of law is the ultimate settlement place in America.
Yeah.
I mean, the president sues everybody sues the president. So it starts from the top on down. I mean, and he doesn't give up even when he loses.
Even when he loses, he doesn't give up. So for young people, again, this message to me was paying homage to the older members of society, because sometimes they don't feel like people listen to them. But you can learn a lot. I mean, I really appreciate it, and I just love sharing that knowledge and saying, look, we're conscious about everything. We're not just going to get on the sports program and read scores. And that's what I love about Big C Sports. The fact that you can follow Big C Sports on the #1 sports podcast program in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a television set in your home, and most people do, but the older folks didn't, but they can still follow Big C Sports, Big C. You can follow us on Xfinity Comcast. You can also follow Big C Sports on an app that I love. It's called Alexa. Just say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. You'll hear me introduce Big C, and he'll do his thing. So to our older statesmen, we can change with technology. I understand the history and tradition. It's all fair in love and war. You got to do what makes you happy. For young kids going off to school, think before you act. Sometimes if you think before you act, if you pause, just think before you act, you do a lot better than if you don't. Big C, I want to just close out on one thought. I know you've been doing a lot of traveling also for the summer. Is there a region of the country that has the best sports opportunities to enjoy yourself? Football, basketball, baseball. And I just want to get your thoughts on your opinion. Whether would that be, Big C?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about enjoying yourself in a region of the country, Charlton, you have to go to the Northeast, and why would you not? Well, when you think of all of what you have up there, you have the New England Patriots up there, Charlton. You have the Buffalo Bills. You have the New York Jets. You have the New York Giants. You have the New York Yankees. You have the New York Mets. You have the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
You have the Boston Bruins, the Boston Celtics. I mean, the list goes on in the Northeast.
Yeah.
I mean, every type of entertainment that you could look for. Not only that, Charlton, you got the theaters. You got great restaurants. And you don't have to worry about it. You can also get mugged on the street.
Yeah. And you can also find rats in New York that are as big as cats. It's all fair in Lemon Ward. The best food, I still think, is, I want to just give it to you guys, down south. When you're down south and you're eating the greasy food, it may not be healthy for you, but it does taste good. I also love on the West Coast where everything seems to be fresh, at least the stuff out of the ocean. They don't have to truck it across the country. I just want to say there's so much happening in sports. I loved our segment on boxing. I love talking to older gentlemen around the country about what they appreciate about the sports world, as well as being well-read and talking about news and politics too. And I just love bringing that to Big C Sports. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to some fantastic, possibly boring NFL football tonight. Think about this. The Atlanta Falcons, who hosted the Super Bowl last year, are down in Miami tonight.
Yeah.
Who are hosting the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
And the ironic part about this, the Atlanta Falcons have not won a preseason game since 2006. They might want to put in a call to former President Obama because he was in the White House at that time when things were going good for them during the preseason.
Well, I'm sure they can put in a call to President Obama, and POTUS would probably benefit from it too. But you can always follow them. If you're young or old, you can follow every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.